actually worked.
Yeah?
Yeah, it doesn't show.
Huh.
This is really weird. Huh. It says it's working, but
Yeah?
there's no...
There's no feed on the Twitch?
There's no Twitch feed or... This is really weird, and Cade is on silent.
I feel for you, Alana. If it makes you feel any better, this kind of thing happened in my very first class that I taught online.
It does.
What?
This is all really new to me, so I'm
Sure.
not entirely sure what's... Oh. That doesn't really do anything. Not sure what that's for. Huh. I entered the key that Cade gave me. Wait, hold on. I think we might be on a black screen, which doesn't make any sense. Why is it black?
Do you need to mute one of the other things that's coming in?
I don't know.
Because you've got video capture, and then you've got the window capture. What happens if you turn off the video capture? What does that do?
That gets rid of you.
Okay, and then what's the other one? That's you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I hit stream. Set everything up like Cade said, but we are not showing, which is unfortunate. And Cade's still on silent. She's typing now, so hopefully Jordan can help us fix this.
Okay.
And
No
we're
worries.
not too late to our own stream. I apologize if the chat can actually hear us. We're not trying to be late.
Right?
We're just not sure how to do technology.
Right.
I'm a technology major, but technology doesn't always like me. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, well, I think that sometimes when you got the differences in how the technology is made between one application and the next, whether it's Mac or PCs, makes it complicated because then other people can't help you as easily.
Yep, and she requested going to Cade or Amethyst, and Cade's on silent mode, and Amethyst is in the middle of a stream. This is unfortunate. I have no idea.
Yeah. See, I haven't done the Zoom when I've recorded stuff with OBS. I've only just captured from my video camera though. So I don't know. I saw a couple of tutorials that talk about downloading these plugins for your Mac.
I did. I downloaded both of the OBS and the SYB and all the other things to do audio.
Right. Because there's one that makes essentially like a virtual camera, and then the other one is the audio. So there was two links that I saw.
Yep, and I got both of those in.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what's going on.
I'm not playing with you right now, buddy. I am on a call. Yeah. I know it's playtime, but I'm sorry.
Oh, wait, are we on? Did it work and we didn't know? I don't know. It could have.
Could be.
But I can't see it.
I don't have the link, so I have no idea.
I just went to Twitch. We are on! Can you all see us? We might have just been looking like idiots for 10 minutes. I'm so sorry.
That is perfect.
Wonderful.
There's your icebreaker.
We can't see the stream, but they can. That's fantastic. Nobody warned me of these. Alrighty, for everyone who's joining us, hi. My name's Alana, and I have the wonderful opportunity to interview Bill Kivi. Oh, this is the wrong way. It's opposite screen. I don't know what's going on.
Over here. Hey, how are you doing, Alana?
I'm doing well now that I know that I didn't mess it up.
Right? Nah, yeah, exactly.
Lovely little surprises. All right, so if you want to do like a quick introduction of yourself.
Sure. So my name's Bill Kivi, and I am a designer slash art director slash animator slash director. Kind of wear a lot of hats. For the last 5 years, I've been designing dark rides for theme parks, and they are typically interactive ones. So there's a game element to them, and they use game systems similar to Unreal Engine, if not Unreal. And so there's media, and then there's also practical effects. So fog machines, strobe lights, animatronics, you name it. Big show sets. Some of the rides that I've worked on would be so Sesame Street Mission, which is at Portaventura, Spain, which is a really cute ride. Another one would be Justice League Battle for Metropolis. I worked on a handful of those. The winner of that one was one at Magic Mountain, which is in California, Six Flags. And that won a Thea in 2018, so I'm really proud of that one. Another ride that some of us in the U.S. would ride would be up Reese's Cup Fusion, which is at Hershey Park, which is a really fun interactive ride if you're in the area, which you guys are. So that's not a far distance to go. It's really cool, and that's a really cool park as well. So that's a little bit about myself. I don't know how far you want me to go, Alana.
No, that's perfect.
Okay, cool.
We're gonna do some quick icebreakers.
Sweet.
And we're just gonna try and get to know you more. First question, what got you into design? What got you into creating roller coasters?
Okay, so just make a correction or an adjustment there. So I do dark rides, and so they could be a coaster that's what we call a hybrid. And so a dark ride, imagine you're inside of a large building, right? So Pirates of the Caribbean at Disney or one of those, that's a dark ride, right? So it's a completely enclosed building that it's fully themed throughout. So
there's a difference between outdoor rides and dark rides.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so what made you choose then dark rides over regular outdoor rides?
Okay, so it's really all about story, right? So I love story, so fellow animators can relate. It's all about storytelling. So I love being a completely surrounded and part of the story. And so as a kid, my mom's a Disney addict, and so we went to Disney and SeaWorld and Busch Gardens and Cypress Gardens and all those parks nearly every year. Sometimes we went twice a year. Not to all the parks, but certainly the Disney ones. And so I kind of grew up just with a serious love affair of parks and also the animation that went into all the rides, because they're basically were the story then created real. And I love the idea you can take like a story and then make it something someone else can walk into or ride through. I think that's just like, it's just a whole nother level of storytelling. And so when I was going to grad school, I went for animation, and I didn't really realize there was an avenue into this world of designing rides. I knew there were people that did it, and I envied them greatly. But I didn't really have an idea how I could do it. So I got lucky, and I got to know the people over at Sally Dark Rides, and so because I was teaching at the time for the art institutes, and they had a relationship with the college, and so I was there, and one of the other professors, Brian Oakley, who's an awesome guy, he's like, hey, we're gonna go over to Sally today and do a tour. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but what's Sally? And he's like, well, they make dark rides. I'm like, dark rides? Are you kidding me? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, they're really good. I'm like, why haven't I heard of this? So I'd been there for a few months, and I just wasn't familiar with them. And so I went, and they had this really awesome tour. Like, it started off in a shooting gallery with Scooby-Doo, and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. So I got to know Rich Hill over there and Drew, and so I built a relationship with those guys, and I just got more and more interested in like, okay, I'm gonna really try to pursue this now, because it seemed more tangible.
That's amazing. It's just like, your dream job. They're just gonna show you around and pluck you right out. It's great.
Yeah, they did end up making a position for me when the school had announced it was going to close. And so I put a message up on Facebook to my network that I was really wanting to do creative work. And so I got a message like, hey, let's talk. And so that kind of got it started.
Do you remember what your first project for Sally Dark Rides was?
Yeah, it wasn't glamorous, but it was good, but it still made me nervous. So they had these, so on the Justice League ride, they'd already made two of them. And so one went into Texas and one went into St. Louis, and they weren't overly happy with the look of the graphics they have these auto doors that open and close as you're exiting one scene into the next. And so they weren't really crazy about the look, how they turned out. So I kind of redid those graphics. And so the graphic then informed what was going to be made as an insert. So there's these large doors that have these panels that can come and go. And so I redid those. And so that was, I didn't really change the design. It was just made to look better. But it was a little stressful because I'm not really a graphic designer. That's not really my strong suit. And so I'm like, give me something dimensional. I can do that all day long, But they're like, do this. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it took me way longer than it should have, probably 3 days. But I worked through those doors and they got, approved, and they made some subtle changes and they did look better. But yeah, that was my first first little project of that big project.
That's awesome. All right, we're gonna do some more non-work related questions just to get to
Sure.
know you better. So we did joke about this earlier about the animal question
Right.
and the icebreakers that they hand out. There was one where it's like, if you were any type of animal, what would you be?
Right. Right. So if you had to ask my 22-year-old self what my animal would be, I'd probably said a shark, right? Because I was, slightly obsessed with him for a really long time, avid Shark Week watcher. So,
Nice.
but
Which is
now that I'm a little
understandable.
older and, been through a few tumbles, I'm like, you know what? I think I'd rather be a turtle. Because they got a really tough exterior, and they kind of have like their little built-in house. And I just think they're a really cool animal, and they're unique. They're not like a lot of other ones. So I guess I would go with turtle.
Yeah, and who doesn't want to just kind of like disappear,
Exactly, right? That's how I feel right now in this stage of our country. It's like, just stay inside my little shell, stay away from people.
I think at this point in my life, obviously because I have a fondness for cats, I'd be a cat because
Yeah.
while cats are mildly apathetic, they are also extremely controlled freaks. You've noticed my very planning tendencies already, especially with this. So, a little bit like a cat, I can't help but
Yeah.
knock stuff over because I'm a little clumsy. It's not
Right.
entirely on purpose.
Are you known to jump on top of refrigerators?
Not on top of refrigerators, but I will climb random stuff.
No, there
We
you go.
we found this little rock park. Emily
Yeah.
looked away for 2 seconds and I was on top of it. And I'm just
Yeah,
like,
there you
haha! I
Yeah,
like to
makes
feel
sense.
tall. Alrighty. So far the chat is kind of just idle. I can't really
Okay.
tell if that's just my phone or us, but we will try and answer any questions you all have, so feel free to shout those out. When I'm looking at my phone, I'm not ignoring you guys. I'm trying to see your questions so we can make sure we get them all in with our time here, because we definitely want this to be for all of CGT and CIT. So another question would be, what hobbies do you enjoy? What do you do to get away from work and get away from design? Especially since I know it's so easy to get so caught up in a project or so caught
Yeah.
up in a drawing.
Well, it's a variety of things. I really love going for a nice walk or a long hike. So I usually take my dog on two long walks a day. I was taking him for about 3 miles a day, and then I realized he was kind of like, this isn't working for me. So I've had to cut it back. But I am fortunate that I live in a really kind of a historic neighborhood that's really pretty, and so there's all kinds of really cool houses with unique architecture, and there's lots of great trees. Like we have what are called live oaks, and they're massive. If you don't know what a live oak is, you need to look it up. It is one of the most majestic looking trees you've ever seen. So they're incredible, and the neighborhood's kind of peppered with them. And there's a great park that's like 3 blocks over from me, and it's nice. It's got a stream that runs through it, and babbling brook and all that. It's just super relaxing. So a lot of hiking. I don't just do it in the neighborhood. I'll go to parks too and do that. I like to go down and visit friends. Like I've got some friends in Naples, and go down there and just change the scenery for a few days. Or I go to the parks a lot because it's only 2 to 2.5 hours from here, so it's really easy to go down to Orlando. So I've been to Disney now twice in the last month and a half, and so I like to go to the parks, and sometimes I'll meet family there, or I'll meet some friends, or occasionally I just go by myself if nobody else is gonna be around, and I don't mind that either. It's just because then it's like super like one-on-one, and I can be that that guy that studies like where the projectors are and how how they're hiding their ride system, or where that spray thing came from that squirted my face or whatever. So I don't mind that, because I would annoy anybody I was riding with when I do that. So yeah, I'm very social. So I really love going out to lunch or dinner with friends and just talking. So and I'm a craft beer aficionado, if you will. So I love going and finding little microbrews all around the country and trying those. So yeah, that's some of the things I like to do.
Alrighty, here's one. Since a lot of college students will be watching this, what is some advice you would have given your college-aged or 20-year-old self?
Sure. My advice would have been, well, a few things, but one is be okay with failing, because it's going to happen, whether it's your fault or just situational. So like you can't be afraid of taking a risk just because you might fail, right? Like, so I think like I would hope anybody in a creative degree program is doing it because they want to do something creative with their life, and they want to, like that. Just knowing that you're there, you're already taking the first step. So just keep pushing, right? There is going to be that moment when you graduate and you're like, well, my dad or my mom or my neighbor or my uncle or whoever is like tells you about this job, right? It's in town and it's convenient and they know somebody there, and it's not creative, it's not what you want, and you're like, well, this seems like I could do that and not put myself out there for failure or risk or or maybe rejection. I would say that's the wrong approach, but it's easy to do. I'm with the state of affairs now. There's, with the industry being a little slower than it had been, there's those questions in the back of your head. It's like, wow, I could take all this experience and skills and whatever, and I could transition to something different. But when I wake up in the morning, I know what I want to do, and I want to be creative, and I want to, make things for other people to enjoy. So if you feel that way, then you need to give it your best effort to make it happen. That would be my advice.
All right, I'm going to check the chat. Okay. What do you look for or recommend in a well-rounded portfolio? Should we specialize in one focus area or learn many skills?
Okay, so my general advice is to be really good at one thing and be pretty darn good at a second thing, and then have other skills that also support those skills, right? So, for example, if you're just like, if I'm talking to somebody that's in animation, right? If you want to be a modeler, let's say, it's a really good idea to, bridge another skill with that, right? So that other skill could be maybe texturing, right? So, part of the modeler's job is to lay out the UVs and prepare them for the texture artist anyway. So if you're really good at texturing, then it would give you more flexibility as far as working in a studio. But there's also there's different ways to do it, and you got to pair with what you're good at. So let's say that there's the other option is maybe you're really good at texturing, but you have an inclination to do lighting. Well, you could, because typically it's texture and then light kind of follows the pipeline. So you could take all your knowledge of textures and be a better lighter, right? So somebody that's good at lighting is going to understand how the texture works and how it interacts with the lights. And so, and they need to be able to make the adjustments without waiting, sending it back to a texture artist and waiting for a result. So,
Yeah.
so I would, try to couple certain skills together and then have a working knowledge of the other ones, right?
Yeah, so have like a focal point and then a net to catch it.
Yeah, and it just, especially in an animation studio is you need to have more than one skill so you can be on different points of the production pipeline. So you're not doing let's say it's a contract and maybe there's only, 3 months worth of modeling, but the contract's a year. Well, if you've got a couple skills that you're good at, you could stay on your contract longer. Because they could just move you from the beginning of the production to the end, So it's so that that's very specific to animation, but for what I do, it's different. I think first off, you need to understand story. So because and I don't say that's not like a golden rule, but to if you were going to design a ride from scratch, you need to first and foremost understand how stories are built, and then you got to be able to break down the stories, such as like a storyboard artist, right? So what are the beats? What are the key moments that are going to move this story along, right? And what is the stuff that doesn't matter, right? If it doesn't add anything to you, you chuck it, right? So why bother? So understanding story would be foundational, and then having and it doesn't have to be 3D. It could be some kind of drawing skills, so that you can visualize it. And it's there's so many different roles, but if you wanted to be the person who's crafting it, you need to be able to communicate visually to other people, and you need to understand like lighting. You need to understand color theory. You need to understand composition. You need to understand timing. So it's a little bit of everything, and also audio and how it benefits an experience. So designing a ride is a lot it's like being a filmmaker who's creating something that's going to stay permanent, not just something that's put up for a few days or maybe 2 months and is torn apart. So it requires a lot of different understandings. It doesn't mean you do all those things. You just need to know how they work together. So.
And as for your portfolio, the best advice I ever got for a portfolio is that is never finished. You are constantly updating your portfolio with your best work, with what you definitely want to show as how you've grown as an artist and where you are today. So don't forget that. Don't just let it sit in a folder behind you. It is definitely important to keep updating it and make it as consistent as possible and as organized as possible. So if you've got a lot of background paintings, maybe put those in its own portfolio if you want to do background painting for like digital painting, or you could have it as a section in your portfolio. So keeping your portfolio as organized as possible, or having separate portfolios depending on what job you're applying for, can definitely give you an edge when you're applying for a degree, or not a degree, a career path.
Sure. So I would. So again, for the animation specific people. So anytime you apply to any studio, they're going to make a file for you, right? And they're going to take your portfolio as it is. It's going to sit in that file. If you ask them for feedback and they give it to you, right? And then you resubmit, let's say 6 months later, they're going to look back at their notes they gave you and that original reel and compare it to your new reel and see how well you followed the direction. So if you don't take their direction and don't apply it, you're never going to work there. I mean, it's kind of like their little test. And it tells them a lot about who you are and how you want to grow, and whether they could put you in their team and you would take direction and get better. So it just gives them a lot of insight. So I would highly recommend asking for feedback anytime you apply to something and you don't get it. Why? Ask them if they give you, like, even if they could, a written email, or maybe these days, maybe you may be willing to do a Zoom with you possibly. But 10 or 15 minutes just to kind of walk through your portfolio and tell you what you can make better. And then if you take that direction and apply it, and then resubmit, 3-6 months later, they're gonna see the growth, and they're like, okay, this is maybe something we can work with. So I'd recommend that. I think, as you were talking a lot about portfolio, I think a lot of places want to see process, and so they want to see how you think. So if you're designing something, for example, do you have a thumbnail sketch of it? Do you have a better rendered sketch of it, or a color illustration? And then how do you move from that, right? So if it's 3D, do you do a massing model or a previs model? And then how does it progress from there, to the final product? So I would highly recommend putting just basically it's a breakdown, and it teaches them it informs them that somebody else didn't hand you artwork and then you just reinterpreted it in 3D. And there's a lot of jobs that are like that, where somebody else designs it and then you're just interpreting in 3D. And so it's really hard for them to know where the creativity came from. It'll tell them you have technical skills, but it won't tell them creativity. So I'd highly recommend putting your process in there. It's actually something I need to put in mind.
And don't be afraid to go to any of your professors or any of the wonderful staff we have here at IUPUI. They will be more than willing to look over your portfolio or help you in an area where you think this could be stronger. So definitely take advantage of the resources that are here for you. We've got another question in.
Great.
That is not a question. It's spam. Hello, Bigelow.
Well, what was the spam? Was it interesting?
No, it's bigfollows.com. They're like, ha, you have a stream. Let's crash it.
Right.
So who knows? Not quite sure what that's
for. You can click on it for sure.
Nah, I'd rather not get a virus today. I don't have. I'm a broke college kid. I can't afford to replace my phone at this point.
Right? Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
All right. So you also mentioned that you got your degree focusing in animation, and while you do a lot of dark rides and renderings, what are some animations that you've been able to work on, since you did say that's one of the many hats you've worn over the years?
Sure. So the media that we had in the dark rides, I didn't do the Justice League one. That was already, kind of already handled. And so, but the Sesame Street mission at Port Ventura. So I worked directly with the animation studio, so their team, and a Sesame Workshop. And so let's say that Big Bird, right? So they're going to make the Big Bird figure, and so they're submitting, the animation studio is submitting Big Bird, like a turnaround to me, and I'm going through in the first 2 rounds of giving them feedback and notes, making sure that the Big Bird's the right proportions, making sure he's as tall as he's supposed to be, and his feathers are, they're very specific. So like he's got the right number of little head feathers, up here, and his tail is the right position and the right number of feathers and the right, like curvature and all this stuff. So, so I go through and I do a draw over and send it back to them, and then they rework Big Bird, send it back, and then once I thought it looked pretty good, I'd send it over to Sesame Workshop, and then I'd get another set of draw overs, which then I'd submit back to the animation studio. So that's just one little piece, but so I did that with all the characters, and then made sure that what was actually happening in the scenes, worked with them as far as like trying to make the scenes all fun and standalone, and so adding like little fun features like turning off lights or having like a fog kind of stuff coming out of the air vents if you shot an air vent, or little silly things like that in Hooper's store. So I worked with them throughout the entire production, and then also during the installation of the ride at the site. And so we're walking through scene by scene, and and like, like Elmo is a little big. Can we scale him down? And or this camera, we feel like like it seems like we're pushed in too far. Can we back the camera out some? And so we did a lot of on-site adjustments, tweaks. So that was one of them. And then another one would be the Reese's Cup Fusion, which is up at Hershey Park. And so that one was really all on-site. So I worked with the animation studio there. It had already been in production. I'd been part of it, but not deeply enough. And so, but I worked with them on site, and we reworked some things and just made it look great, and turned out really cute. And then there's another ride that I can't talk about. It's been in development, and so, but when it finally does meet a park, it's going to be pretty awesome. It's super cute, and the animation was looking great. So it's neat. So just kind of more on the art director / director gameplay kind of side, trying to make sure that everything's fun and looks great. That's kind of what I've been doing with animation in the last few years.
Do you think that by having both the 3D aspects of being in the environment as well as the screen productions and the animations creating the experience overall, do you find that to be more impactful than just regular rides, and especially in terms of visual stimulation?
Yeah, I think when you do it right, it is more impactful. So the rides that I've worked on, all the scenic or the screen environment has always been an extension of the environment that's created physically. So if you think of set extensions, which is a common practice in visual effects, right? So you got somebody standing on a dock, and that's practical, but maybe the wall behind in the building and then down the alleyway is all fake. Well, that's the same idea. So we've got all this physical stuff that's real, and we got stuff that's close to the guest. So it's very layered. So that's where the composition understanding comes in, right? So you know how to layer it, both in the physical that's in front, and then in the set that's virtual. And if you do it right, it all blends in really well together. And so it does gives you a bigger sense of the space. And then there's all this stuff you can do in animation that you can't really do practically. So it's a lot more flexibility.
Another question that kind of ties in with that, since you do have a large crew, since a lot of people work on these big rides, how do you find that working environment to be? Like, what types of people do you have to work with? Who usually gets brought in? You've got engineers, models, the animation team. What is that environment like?
Well, so they're all quite different, but I don't know. I love it, but so let's say that I'm art directing a ride and I'm on site and it's being installed. Well, I'm going to work with the lighter. So maybe there's 1 or 2 people doing lighting, and then I'm going to work with the animation studio, and there's usually 3 or 4 people typically on site for that. I'm going to work with the interactive company, and there's usually 2 to 3 people with that, and I work with each of them. The construction team, which is usually the parks team, and then their management team. Work with the project manager. The project manager does a lot of the hard coordination and getting everybody what they need and making sure that we're going to hit all of our deadlines. And then I work with the ride system manufacturers. That's usually a crew of people. And then of course there's the scenic company, and there's usually 6 to 10 maybe of those on site, a mixture of carpenters and painters. And then there's probably a few other miscellaneous things, a lot of technical people putting up speakers and the racks for the rides, and any of the hardware for monitors and all that stuff. So as an art director, I am literally walking all day long. So imagine from 6 a.m. until maybe 6 p.m. if I'm lucky. If things are not going quite as well as they should, maybe I'm there until 10. And I'm walking all day long, answering questions, telling folks, oh, can we do this, or can we try this, or they're bringing the we have this problem, how do we fix this, or whatever. And so it's a lot of different people, but I think it's a blast. Everybody's like super nice, and why it's fun is because you're all on the same journey together, right? So you all have the same goal, and the goal is always to make something that's really great and something that people are going to love. So it's not hard to get people to put in hard effort, because they're already wanting to do it anyway. So I think the dynamics work really well. And it's a lot of different people, highly technical people that are construction backgrounds. You got people that are like hardcore painters, and like you name it, they're all there. But I've always been kind of like in the middle of all that, so I like talking with them all.
Nice. All right, I'm gonna see if maybe it's just... No? Nope, I think we're all good. Alrighty, and let's try and change up some of the questions.
Sure.
Just to see what we can accomplish during this time. So
Okay.
you mentioned a lot how color plays a large role. Has ever just changing colors slightly changed the feel, or do you have complete control over the colors, or is that I know with bigger companies it's probably harder since their characters already have iconic colors, but
Yeah, they're if you're working with something like Sesame Street, those colors are very specific. I mean, so the Big Bird animatronic, who's like 8'2", there is only one place in the world that his feathers come from. There's only one person in the world that makes them, and so guess what? That's the feathers he has. So that's they're very specific. But the good thing about that is they have guides. So they share, here's this, and this is how this should be, and here's this, and this is how it should be. Make sure you have the right logo, make sure you use the right colors. So, and I find that basically most IP holders, intellectual property holders, they have that library, and they're just like, here, do it this way. And you're like, okay. So that makes it easy. Where things change is so let's say that you've already got the ride built and everything's painted, and now it's time to install it. And you get on site, and the scene that you had conceived looked really awesome on paper, or maybe even in a 3D model, but then you get there and you realize that it's too monotone, right? Like, there just isn't enough value scale changes, and so everything just starts to get flat. So that's when it gets really fun, because then you can go, okay, well, I need you to shade this here, right? Or maybe let's add a pop of color here, or let's accent this line here, and so you just kind of work with the painter and help make something look really great. And that's also one of the things I really love to do. So just kind of going through and adding a few more layers of realism to them, right? So if it's something that's outside, like the Justice League, for example, like the security booth, it arrived on site and it was perfect. I'm like, why is it so clean, right? It looked like concrete, sure, but it looked like it was brand new. So I'm like, this doesn't, we need to dirty this thing up. So, it needs to have some rainwater streams going down it, and we need some puddles, where stuff is built up, sediment. And so I just, worked with the painter and explained to him how I wanted it to look like it's been there for a while. And just, went over and illustrated it, and so he was like, oh, okay, cool. And then, came back 15 minutes later and it looked amazing. So there are things you can do, and a lot of that stuff you don't see until you're on site and you're walking around it. Other fun things you can do with color is by adding light. And so you can use like a colored LED. And so maybe something's just a little boring in a corner or whatever. Well, you can throw a blue light on it or an orange light or something and really make it pop. So lighting is another really useful tool, and you can use colored lighting. So those are super fun. Did a lot of that at the Reese's ride, because it was going to be an entirely white ride. And so when I got there, I was like, we need some color in this thing. And so luckily we had some extra lights, and so we added a whole bunch of colored lights and then some gels to the other lights to just cast like some purples and some pinks and other colors, and it really livened it up. So that's another great tool.
So here would be a question that I know a lot of people have probably would be, what softwares do you find most helpful, or what resources do you use in order to make your job easier?
That's a tough one, because there's a lot of variety. So because I come from the animation background, I like really robust tools. It's like Maya or Max. So I use Max, and but I find that there are a lot of people in the industry that don't, but there are those that do. But a really common one is like SketchUp, and I see that a lot of people that are in architecture or interior design are very familiar with SketchUp, and then some folks that are also in some themed entertainment programs will learn it as well. I think that a bridge between SketchUp and AutoCAD would be like Revit. I don't know it, but I've seen some pretty cool stuff. I don't know how good of a tool it is for modeling. I'm not sure, but I would think you could probably take your 3D models from Max and pipe them into Revit quite easily, and then use them, or probably Maya as well. But so those are some common ones. If there's a lot of jobs in this field that are they'll say like 3D design, and essentially what they're doing is they're creating construction drawings to then build scenic. And so those jobs, they usually want people that know Revit or something similar. Maybe they know SolidWorks or Inventor, and then they know AutoCAD, and so they can draw like actual construction drawings. And that's not really what I do. I'm conceiving, like what this stuff is going to look like, and designing it from scratch. And so that, but there are certainly lots of jobs that do that the other way.
All right, we got a question in the chat, which,
okay, cool.
Guys, feel free to put any question. It doesn't have to be related specifically to jobs and portfolios and art. Just whatever you want to say, feel free to chat. But this one is, what would you say the hardest part of your job is?
Hardest part, probably when I was really busy, was going home. Just like accepting that you need to put call it a day and go home and do something else. I mean, I'm not exaggerating that I love this stuff so much that I would, if there was a lot going on, I'd show up early and I'd go home late. I might be the last or the second to the last person in the building, and it's just because I literally just loved what I was doing. It was fun. And so now I work from home, so it's even worse. I should go watch a movie, or maybe do something. I don't know, play a game, anything but just more work. So So that's honestly been my challenge, is turning off, and especially now because I'm at home and it's just too easy to not turn off.
Has there
But
been a part of the design process that is more likely to hit a snag or hit a speed bump per se, like the lighting or the modeling? Has there
it's
any?
really I'd say they're really the only snags that I'm really can think of is you're not designing for yourself, right? You have a whole list of bosses or clients. So so I worked with a creative director who was great, but sometimes maybe he's like, oh, well, can you do this, or can we change that, or well, I like this, but maybe we could do it this way, or whatever, right? So you've got to satisfy that customer or client first, right? Your boss, your direct boss, and then from there it's going to go to, let's say, it could go either directly to the park, who is essentially who's paying for it, and then they may be like, no, we don't like that, or we were really thinking it'd be more like this, and so you could go in and make adjustments, make changes, and then if the creative director likes it now, and then the park likes it, it goes to the IP holder, the intellectual property, right? So if there's some kind of brand associated to it, they're going to look at it, and maybe it'd be like, no, this is not on brand. These colors are wrong, or maybe this is just too much this way or that way, and so you're changing it again. And so it's not like it's terrible or anything, or it never upset me. It's just how it is, if you're going to call something difficult, it's difficult to keep reworking an idea, and you may do it 9 times, and the deadline doesn't get shorter, and so it just becomes more and more pressure, and you're trying to find out what everybody wants. And in a perfect world, you would know what they wanted to begin with, but some people don't know what they want until they see what they don't want. And that's just how it is. And it's okay. So you just have to be really flexible, and you can't take it personally. You can't attach yourself to the work. That's like you can care about the work. You should care about the work, but you just can't. You need to be able to separate that there's me and then there's my work, right? If somebody's saying they don't like something about the work, they're not talking about me. They're talking about there's something about this work that they just don't quite understand. And so that's a skill you have to learn to survive any creative field. And some people are really nice about it, and other people are not. So
there's that. Okay, we do have some more questions.
Yeah.
Do you like animating or ride design more? Do you have a preference? So if you were more in the animation side or the dark ride design side, which side do you prefer more?
Sure.
If you do.
My preference is strongly towards designing the rides. I just love it. So it just gives me more stuff to play with, even more than animation. So that's for me. That's hands down.
And then there's another one in the chat. How big is lighting and sound in the ride design world? So how much impact, or how big is that field?
Okay, so it's important. You have to. I mean, honestly, just like film or animation, the score, the music sets a mood, right? So it can be really subtle, or it can be really high energy, or whatever. So it's really important. There are people that literally specialize in making music for attractions, and that is what they do. They may do rides, they may do theater shows, they may do just the music, like when you walk to the park. So different sections have their own little theme music, so they may compose that. So there's a whole group of people that specifically just make music for parks and rides. And then there's other ones that kind of do a little bit of everything, but so it's very important. And then lighting is also, so lighting is, for me anyway, lighting is part of my design. So I usually will partner with, the lighter, but I've already conceived how I want the place to be lit, and oftentimes where the fixtures are, go, and I might customize, custom design the fixtures, and then we have to figure out how we're going to do it. But because I come from the animation background, I'm used to building a world, visually in a 3D space, and it includes lighting and textures and all that. Because I want my image to convey, right? Like here's what it's going to look like, and people they're sometimes surprised when the final result is what I conceived in 3D. They're like, wow, that looks the same or real close. And like, that's the plan.
It's kind of like there was already a plan you approved that we just built.
Right, yeah, that's how, in my mind, we should be working. But there's different ways to do it, and then so it doesn't work for everybody. But
I do recall that the Disney park, each of the shops in Magic Kingdom has their own playlist. And you can find that on Spotify. It's great study music.
Yeah, that's fun. Somebody gave me I won't say who or where it's for, but gave me a list of tracks for one of the theme parks, and so I listen to that sometimes. Just build up some energy. I listen to a lot of music scores, and I find that those really help too. So like on Spotify or Pandora or whatever, I've got multiple channels. So I really like that. And then I got a new one. It's Epic Game, and it's on my Spotify. That's got some pretty cool tracks in it.
See, I am very much, while I do love music tracks and movie tracks, I'm also a classical musician. So like,
there you go.
Throwing on classical symphonies, Dvorak, Beethoven,
nice.
Cello suites, like those are great. But that's not exactly going to get you in the mood to ride a roller coaster. So you definitely, there's definitely its own genre almost of music, because it is very hand tailored to the rides, or if the rides are based on movies, you've got theme songs that can be playing. Like I know Jurassic Park is a very iconic theme song. So
here's So this is a funny thing that happens though, is so let's say you're doing a Jurassic Park ride, and this isn't based off of reality. I'm just saying you brought it up, so this is my example. I'm not saying this happened, but
go for it.
So let's say that you did a Jurassic Park ride and you had a music score. Well, it's very likely that you can't either you can't get or you can't afford the rights to the original score, and so then you'll hire a composer who is then allowed to make a kind of a inspired by score that's reminiscent of it, but it can't be a copy. And so that happens. So it's interesting. Like I can't imagine how expensive it would be to buy the rights to Jurassic Park's music.
Have you ever had it to where a park makes a contract with music, to where it's just like, all right, you're allowed to use this music, you don't own it, but you're allowed to use it for this ride? Has that ever happened, or have you?
It could happen, but I don't have an experience with that, or with the Jurassic Park ride. Just to be clear, I did not work on any of those. So that was just an example of how it could go.
We do have another question in the chat. So, are there any other role you have other than ride designer? And is it a good idea to be a jack of all trades or focus on your role?
Right. So, kind of that's similar to what we were talking about a little bit earlier. But so it really depends on where you're at. So I was really lucky. I worked for a small company, and we didn't have very many people in the design department. And so because of that, I got to learn a lot and wear a lot of hats. So, I could be doing, just to give you an idea, so maybe at one point in the day, I'm working on a script for a possible, like, this ride could be a this, right? And this is kind of how the story would go. And just, kind of a short little brief story. And then maybe later I am designing a show set for another ride. So what that environment's going to look like. And then maybe later I'm writing the animation studio and giving them notes where I'm giving them some direction on how the animation's coming. So as they're doing their previs, maybe I'm like, this guy should be going left, not right, like your continuity problem from the cut before or whatever, right? So I'm giving them direction, and then maybe later I'm on a conference call because we're talking about a new project and we had some ideas we're sharing and we were talking with the client. Like, that's how varied my day was all the time. It just constantly changing gears. And then maybe I'm doing some graphic design work for another ride, which I'm not good at, and particularly good at graphic design, but I can muddle my way through it if I have to. But so it just varied a lot. And then I did art direction. So maybe the scenic company is sending me their drawings, right? Their construction drawings, and I'm checking those to make sure that the way that they're building the object, whatever it may be, is right. And maybe they're sending me color samples, and I'm reviewing the color samples and be like, yeah, this concrete looks cool, and maybe that marble looks weird, or why did you pick this yellow looking gold, or whatever, right? So, and then giving those folks feedback. So it just, it varied a lot day by day, which made it really fun. So I would highly recommend, if you can, go work for a small company, because the small company is where you're going to get to do a lot of things, and that's where you're going to grow. Now, if let's say you're an animator, right, and you want to go work for Disney, well, guess what? You better be really, really good at character animation. And they don't really care if you can do the other things, right? Because you have to be stellar at that to get in there. Now, you could be a modeler for them, but then you have to be really, really great at that. So they don't need people that are, at least in the animation studio, that are like super broad. I still would recommend having one skill you're really, really great at and another one that you're pretty good at, so you have some flexibility. I wouldn't put all your eggs in just one basket. It's just asking for some trouble.
All right, we do have a long one, so I'm just gonna read the whole thing because I feel like that's what they want to say. So, I've learned working in Hollywood set is very cutthroat, dynamic, and employment is highly volatile. Would you recommend to get your foot in the door in any way possible, or spend some time after graduation to hone yourself as a creative? If the former, what positions should we keep an eye out for? If the latter, would you recommend having a job that pays the bills while designing what you like, or have a job in a creative field that you don't necessarily have a strong passion for?
Okay, so that's
a lot to deconstruct there, but I think the gist of it is if you recommend going straight into a job career, or if you recommend taking some time to develop as a creative artist, and how you would determine how to, keep the lights on.
Well, it's tough. So I would recommend, of course, going for it. Take the time now that you're in school or just about to graduate or whatever the case may be, and really focus on your portfolio. Your portfolio is what's going to get you in the door. And then whether they like you or not, your attitude or your personality or whatever is going to get you the job. So if you got the interview, then they already like something about what they've seen. And now it's just for you to remember that and just be yourself and be, well, unless yourself tends to get you in trouble for being yourself. But I mean, be your best self, be very positive and very friendly and warm, and a sense of humor always goes a long way. And so, do that. But if you're not getting responses for interviews, then I would say you need to take a look at your portfolio and get some advice. Don't just work on it without somebody giving you critique. So, talk to your professors and stuff like that. Again, if you've applied somewhere and they've given you the thank you so much for applying, but we just don't have a place for you now, ask them if somebody will give you some feedback, right? And express, not in a novel, but in a quick, short, I really love this industry and I want to be part of it, so I want to grow. So please, if you could, please share with me a few, critiques on what I could have improved, right? And then I go, okay, well, I know what this person is asking me for, and I'll take 5-10 minutes to construct an email and write them back. I find honestly most creative people are very kind, and we all remember what it's like, being new and trying to guess what other people want to see. I think most people are going to give you a chance to give you some feedback. You just have to ask for it. So that would be my recommendation. Now, if you have a lot of work to do, then yes, get a job to keep the lights on, and then in your spare time, focus on your portfolio. Don't give up on it.
There's also a second part to this.
Mm-hmm.
It's about transitioning into a better or more interesting job that crosses your path. How do you determine when you're ready to jump into those more interesting jobs, or is it difficult to choose between a company that you're not necessarily happy with where you're at, but you've worked there a while, and a company that you're new to, but is definitely where you want to be? How do you... I believe that's the gist of it. Please chat if that's not the gist of it.
Yeah, I mean, that happens to everybody, like where the grass always seems greener somewhere else. A lot of office dynamics happen in any office. Like, so if there's certain personality types you don't like, you're going to find them the next place. Or if there's certain practices that get on your nerves, you're going to find them the next place. Like, you can't really escape any of that. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. You're always going to have something you're like, this would be so great if it was just this way, right? So I would not let that be what guides. And I'm not saying that's what this person's asking, but I just would, as a person who's been around it for a while, I wouldn't let that be your guiding focus. I think it's more about, so work culture is really important. And so, and there are companies that are really great about fostering a healthy, collaborative work culture, and then there's other ones that aren't quite as good at it. So I think that if you're thinking about moving to another company and you're okay where you're at, like, you don't have to, I would talk to some people at the new company and ask them what it's like working there, right? What do they like about it? And ask them to be frank and honest with you, not the corporate, oh, it's great, everybody's so happy and everybody's awesome. But really, tell me the good and the bad, and just so that you know what it could be like for you there, right? And then you also have to engage it against the person you're asking. So if the person you're asking has got a bad attitude, then maybe they're not the person you should talk to in general. But find somebody that works there. And these days, you can use LinkedIn. So reach out to somebody, make a friendship. Don't let that be your first question. Oh, what's it like there? Like, because they're just going to give you a canned answer. Well, it's great. But build a friendship and then ask them, honestly, for their opinion. But yeah, I don't know if I answered the question what they were
did
trying
say
to ask.
in the chat that it was a continuation and it did get answered. So that is good, but this is obviously great information. I also think on top of that, if you see yourself progressing in a different area, like you were solely working in modeling, but you'd really rather be in an art directing position, it's okay to keep looking for that dream job. Don't let yourself get comfortable if that's not what you want to do. Now, if you're already in a position where you're like, I love what I'm doing, nothing's forcing you to look for something else. You don't have to feel pressured to, oh, well, you know, most people are out to get those, I guess, what are they called? I forgot the word.
Promotions?
Yes. You don't have to be looking for that. You can be happy with just animating a character or being in the background painting or being in the modeling or rigging. It's okay to be happy there. It's okay to be happy just doing the lighting and the setup. And it's okay to also branch out and try new things. But if your dream job is to be a art director, or if your dream job is to be in like cartoons or illustration, don't feel bad for still looking for that dream job.
Yeah, and with that, I would suggest seeing if there's an opportunity where you're at. If you like the place, and maybe there's just something you want to grow there, well, it's easier to grow there, or it should be, because they already know you. They know what you can do, and if you just let them know, hey, you know, I really have a passion for this, or I would really like to try this. I know some people that I've had friends that like Pixar, for example, and they had a real interest in something that was outside of their experience. And so what they would do is at the end of their shift, they'd go and sit with, they talk to them, of course, but they'd go sit with a person doing that other task, and then kind of observe and ask them some questions, you know, find somebody that was friendly, and kind of figure out if that was for them or not. And then they learned a lot. And then it also, that relationship they built with that other person then led to moving into a different department. So, you know, like you can't just like bail without trying where you're at, I would say, because chances are, if you've been good, they're going to give you an opportunity to grow.
Alrighty, I don't see any new messages in the chat, but my chat room's being a little crazy, so it's fine. I think my phone is slightly behind, so that's a plus. Okay.
No worries. Sorry for the harsh lighting. I don't, like in the daytime it's perfect in here, but in the evening it's terrible.
Yeah, the sun's setting on my end, so you're gonna slowly see it get darker in here as well. It's fine.
Right. Well, if I turn on these two lights, and if they're not on, then all of a sudden I just start turning blue, right? And it's like you almost can't see me.
I did find out that is because our eyes see color in a really weird way when it's dark, because the rods in our eyes are not meant for color sensory. That's why everything becomes grayscale and dark scale at night, because our eyes are trying to adapt to the lack of light and still be able to see our surroundings. Sorry, I'm in a psych class and we're learning the anatomy of eyes, ears, and senses right now and how that affects the brain. So it's just kind of like
that sounds neat.
Really weird. I thought it would be interesting, especially in my field, because I want to do children's animations. And understanding how the brain works, or how we respond to things, or character growth. If I'm developing a character over time, knowing those things I think is important. Have you found that while you're telling these stories, like how do you determine where your story goes? Do you have like a certain plan, or do you just kind of let it write itself? What is your strategy for that?
Okay, so I'm working on a story right now, and so I'm a researcher, so I like to research and I like to take lots of notes. And so and it doesn't mean that's a long time. So this particular project that I'm working on, I've read, I don't know, 5 short stories, and I have copious amounts of notes, and I'm trying to understand the location and, I don't know, the significance of this character. And I start, as I'm looking at it, like one of my first questions was, I wrote down, who is this character, right? And I'm trying to understand them, right? So, and to understand someone, you understand what they do, right? So how they make their decisions. So I like to break it down that way. And then I do that for any character that's going to be in it, right? Who are they? What are their core values? And then, so then I understand situationally how they would behave, right? So you throw them in this situation, they're going to do this or that, right? And people are like that, right? You've got those friends who are like wound really tight. So you know that if there's the slightest bit of stress, like at the McDonald's or whatever, they're going to lose it. So, it's not hard to write a character like that, right? You just throw them a curveball and watch them fall apart. Or, so I like to just do my research, and so as I'm doing it, I'll notice common themes, right? So like serial writers are really good. They'll introduce a character, and they'll do it by personality tics, right? And so the like whatever the thing is that bothers this person or really excites them or what they really love or whatever, right? And so if you do enough reading, you can see there's a recurring topics. So you're like, okay, well, these recurring topics can be part of the story because people already know what it is. They're going to engage with it. They're actually going to expect to see it, right? So you learn who the character is and how they behave, and then honestly, the story just starts to come together, and you just try to figure out how you're going to weave, right? So that your transitions, right? So what is the overarching story, right? And then along that path, what are the moments? So your beats. So that's how I like to do it. I don't know if that.
Yeah.
It's easy to do if I graft it, but
No, I'm the same way. I got a ton of notebooks and a ton of colored pens to organize my thoughts.
Oh, there you
go. Another question. Do you find that stereotypes or anti-stereotypes affect character development in any way, or just common threads of like the hero trope, stuff like that?
Yeah, well, I think tropes are real. I think that they're based on some kind of, thing that's either happens or is commonly accepted to happen. So you can certainly use a trope. Well, it depends on the story, right? So I was working on a story with a friend of mine, and our intention really was to kind of tackle stereotypes by using them. And so, the whole concept was basically challenging ideas and trying to like cleverly tell a story that was still funny and would only be offensive if you didn't understand the point of it. So, I think it's all about application, right? So you can use stereotypes, but you have to do it in such a way that you're not trying to be offensive, right? You can educate people through stereotype use, right? So they go, oh, here I am following this stereotype, right? Because in general, I think stereotypes are bad, but I'm saying they can be a tool to teach people about not using them, if you follow me.
Yeah, like taking what you thought would have been a flat character and making it a round character, or taking what you thought was going to be a stereotype and then showing that growth of character and growth of development.
Right. Well, you can also force people to see their own biases, right? And thus you're educating them, and they're like, oh, like they feel bad, right? So you could, it's kind of like the red herring idea, right? So you take them down a road, and then they find out that the road wasn't that at all, right? They were completely wrong, and then they have to question themselves of how they felt about it when they find out that they so easily followed that train of thought. So it's just a psychological thing. I wouldn't do that in a dark ride. But, dark rides do well to just be a simple, fun story. You're not necessarily trying to educate anybody or challenge social issues. But if I was writing a novel and I wanted to deal with stereotypes, my approach would be to bait my audience and then teach them that they were wrong for having their biases, if you follow me.
Yeah. It's just kind of like, you thought, but here we are.
Right, exactly.
The end of the road. Not what
Yeah.
you expected.
Yeah.
Again, guys, feel free to add just about any question you want to the chat. It doesn't have to be relating or relevant. We don't mind.
We can talk about turtles.
Wait, what?
We can talk about turtles.
Oh, for a second, I heard gerbils, and I'm just
Oh.
like, that's real random. Don't know what guinea
I
pigs
don't-
and hamsters have to do with it.
Yeah, not a huge rodent fan. I mean, they exist and they have a purpose, but can't say I know much about them.
I know a little bit about hamsters. I really wanted one as a kid, and we did get one, and it was a hamster that was extremely mean. I didn't
Oh,
know
really?
they could be that mean.
I didn't know they had personality types like that. I thought they were all just like mellow.
No, we got a Russian dwarf hamster.
Did you say
And-
war?
Dwarf. It means it was
Oh.
it was a very small hamster. So we were like, it's perfect because I was
Yeah.
a young child. It bit through heavy-duty work gloves and drew blood
Wow.
from my father. So it
Wow.
had to stay in the cage, and it was a very mad hamster.
Right?
And yeah,
Yeah, all of his
she
little
has been
hamster
put
friends
to
telling him
rest.
about how
She-
great life is and the hamster ball and all that, and he's like, what?
no, not this one.
Hmm.
We do
Right.
have. Ooh, which is superior, turtles or tortoises?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'd go with turtle because it can live on land or water, whereas your tortoise is really a land animal.
But we do have the fact that tortoises have a much longer lifespan.
Yeah, they lived forever.
No.
I guess if you're into that kind of thing.
What's gonna outlive you? The tortoise. He will be here way longer than me or my family.
Right? Exactly. Then you have to worry about willing it to someone, and then they're burdened now with your pet that they didn't want either.
I can imagine it now. And it's like a story, and you've got this really fancy family, but the only problem is no one wants the family tortoise. And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
been passed down for generations, and it won't die.
Yeah, exactly. It's like 150 years old. And you're like, oh.
When it's older than your great grandparents, the tortoise will still live.
Right?
That
You see
is
everybody
amazing.
sitting around during the will reading. They're all sweating and anxious, heart palpitations.
I honestly kind of want to see that now. Just like
Right?
this family in black clothes, and it's like, a no for the tortoise. And then,
Right.
the auction guy puts the tortoise cage up, and everyone's like,
Right? And by this point, it's like 300 pounds.
oh, that's amazing. I do think turtles are extremely adorable. And the fact that they have so many shells and that they can live just about anywhere would make
Right.
them superior. But the idea of a family tortoise is hilarious.
It would be really funny. It'd be a cute story.
I can see it now. A kid brings home what he thought was a turtle, but it's a tortoise, and now it's passed down in his family for
Right?
generations.
Yeah. 3 generations later, they still have this tortoise.
Some people think it's immortal. They're not sure.
Right? He gets so big, they just have to pass down the house too because it's just too impractical to move him.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love that. Here's a really random question.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite color?
Oh, green for sure.
Same. I feel that. Do you have a shade of green? Because I really like mint green and dark forest green.
Yeah, it's kind of on the forest / like a polo green, if you're familiar with that. So it's
Yeah.
a deep, rich green.
Somewhere near emerald, but not quite.
Yeah. I like those colors, and I really like jade color as well.
Ooh,
Jade's
yeah.
a really beautiful color of green.
The only one that I can't quite get behind is lime. Only in small amounts is lime a good color.
It has its purposes.
It does.
I had a Kawasaki green motorcycle once,
Ooh.
and that thing was ridiculously bright. I wouldn't ride it now.
But at the time, you wouldn't be missed.
Right?
Motorists would definitely see you. What's that?
Yeah.
Definitely a motorcycle, because it's right there.
Yeah.
It's like its own safety feature.
Right. Yeah, you couldn't miss it because it was really bright. So,
I can just see it like, court. I didn't see him, Your Honor. The motorcycle was bright green.
How could you miss that?
Case dismissed. You totally saw him.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. The second motorcycle I bought was red. It certainly wasn't as noticeable.
Still, did you go for like that candy apple, the glitter paint, or did you go with a flat red?
So the actual red is called Ferrari red.
Ah, okay.
And so at the time anyway, there was only 2 people that could use it. So it was either Ferrari or Ducati. And so Ducati had the rights to use Ferrari red. So it's a very rich red color.
Nice. Nowadays they do just about anything to paint.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of colors, right? So at one time, the Ducati motorcycles used to only come in 2 colors. So it was either yellow or it was red. And now they've got white ones, and they've got gray ones, and they've got these multicolored ones, they've got some blue ones, they're all over the place.
Joke's on us, soon they'll just be throwing in hollow sparkles, and it's going to be the entire rainbow. And it will,
right?
You won't not be able to miss it, you'll also be blinded by it.
Right? The Hello Kitty Ducati.
Yes, we've got another person in the chat who loves green.
Yeah, right on. What about you? What's your favorite?
I said green, mint green, dark forest green. No, we've got a whole green club going on here, and you missed it.
Right? I know. This is what happens when I skip dinner. Brain's not registering. But.
Yeah, I feel that. Yesterday I was super busy trying to get everything done and prepared, and things just kept popping up of due date has been established. It's tonight, and I'm just like, we're not getting dinner. We're going to work on 6 different projects. Right? It's fine. I have snacks.
Exactly. That's why I always keep a box or 2 of protein bars.
I got these fig bars. They're vegan, all natural protein fig bars.
Okay.
They come in a giant box at Sam's, and they are amazing because they're in raspberry and blueberry, but they have that fig texture. I don't know. I really like fig bars. It's probably a little...
You like fig bars that aren't fig bars?
Yeah. I like real fig bars too, but I also like flavored fig bars.
Okay.
Just throw all the fruits in there. Let's see how it goes.
Right? Yeah, there is something special about a fig Newton, to be honest with you.
Yes. I was so happy when they brought those back, because for a while you just didn't find them. And then they're just like, haha, we're back. We never left, but you never saw us. Weirdest thing.
I have no idea when the last time I had one, but now I want one.
Yes.
Right?
Glad to help you with your food cravings.
Right? Next time I go to Publix, Fig Newtons for me.
Yeah, Fig Newtons and salt and vinegar chips. I could live on salt and vinegar chips.
Those are good, especially with the cold cut sandwich.
Ooh, yes. We're probably making everyone watching this hungry. I'm so sorry.
Well, I know I'm making me hungry.
Well, we can switch tracks. That is A-okay.
All we're going to do is talk about food, so
Since you do work with a lot of animation and a lot of visual storytelling. And we did mention Disney, do you have a favorite Disney character?
I'm sure I do. I favorite questions are usually tough because I like different things for different reasons. So like those are difficult. Let me think.
What if we split it up then? Who's your favorite design, story, and then just nostalgia? Because nostalgia is always a category of its own.
So, well, for nostalgia, then I'm going, Mickey, because it's just so iconic with the history of that animation studio, and probably design wise, I really, I'd have to like think about the whole library of Disney stuff, but one that comes to mind that I think is really well done, that still is quite viable, would be like the Stitch design. I think they did a stellar job on that one. It's really good design, great colors, and he's neat, and he can have like multiple arms and stuff. He can transform. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, very playful character. I adore Stitch.
Yeah, I think he's a great character. I mean, he can. I mean, I wouldn't want to watch it every day, but when I see him as a character, like in a shop or whatever, and he happens to be my youngest favorite character, so I 3D printed him a Stitch and painted it, and that turned out pretty cool. And so like, and then he always asked me to draw Stitch for him, so I do draw Stitch now and then. But so I just, when I'm drawing it, I'm like, this is a fun design, right? I think it's really well done. I'm sure there's other ones that are great too. It's just that one's the one that's coming to the top of mind right now.
And then
what was your third one, story-wise?
What is a movie you could find yourself, watching every day?
Oh, that's Disney?
Yeah, we're going to limit to Disney, so definitely narrow into a more animated.
Let's see.
If it's Pixar, I'll allow it.
Okay, so you got some Pixar flexibility in there. Gosh.
It's hard, though, because, like, what isn't Disney? Because technically Marvel and Star Wars are also
Well, now, but they wouldn't call themselves an animated feature even if 80% of it's animated. Yeah, what? Oh, gosh, that's too hard.
I know my sister's answer. It would either be Zootopia, which she watched straight for 2 weeks when it came out, or Nightmare Before Christmas that we watch every Halloween. And she also watched for like 2 weeks straight in October. She does that where she just wants to watch
Nightmare
one movie.
Before Christmas is a unique one because it's not technically a Disney film. They did a distribution of it, but Henry Selick was the director, and then Tim Burton was the producer. And so, do you guys know? Do you know the history of that?
I watched the history film that they made on it that showed like the different sets that they had put out on Disney Plus with all of the characters and how they made the characters and fun behind the scenes. But I'm not sure if I know the entire history, and I love the movie, so go right ahead.
Okay, so Tim Burton, at his early point in his career, he went to CalArts, right? So he was there with John Lasseter and Brad Bird and Pete Docter and a whole bunch of other people who went on to do a lot of great stuff. And so Tim Burton was one of those guys. And so he got an internship at Disney, and I think he actually got hired in as a junior animator. And so Disney had like a contract deal. Basically, if you worked for them, and anything you produced while working for them, they had basically first rights to. And so, well, he had come up with this story idea. It wasn't clearly Disney didn't want it because it didn't match what they do, but because he had done it under their employment, they had first rights to produce it. or in this case, they did the distribution. So fast forward 20 years later or 15 years later, he wants to make this film, and he has to run it by Disney. And so that's kind of how they got involved in it. If he didn't work for Disney, then I can almost guarantee that would never have been associated with them, because it's just so far off brand for them. Yeah. It's very brand for Leica. And some other folks, there's a few stop motion animation studios. So,
yeah.
But that's not Disney's thing. They don't do that.
I remember something similar happened with Oswald, and I love old black and white animations. I especially love how they go with the symphony scores and the definite non-verbal aspect of it. I absolutely adore them. But Oswald was first designed and produced while Walt Disney was working for Universal. So Universal had the rights to Oswald the Lucky Rabbit before Walt Disney made Disney and then had Mickey Mouse, which is why there was such a big deal about Disney getting the rights back for Oswald.
Right. I think it was, maybe it was, I thought it was MGM, but there was, so the backstory of that
before it was Universal?
I don't.
Because the case issue showed. Yeah, I did Google that. Yeah. I don't know. Who knows? Y'all in the chat. That's something you can do. You can look up who technically owns Oswald the Lucky Rabbit before Disney got the rights back. Congrats. You now have homework from here too.
There you go.
All right, we have about 20 so minutes left in our chat, so again, feel free to ask random questions, any questions, but we'll just keep talking if you don't have any. We do plan on going to 8 because I know a lot of people can come and rewatch the stream, so definitely leaving that option open and try and getting as much information as possible. So I'm going to go back more on a business question. How do you find interacting with clients? What is your approach for dealing with a difficult client? Because I feel like a lot of us do wholeheartedly throw ourselves into our work, and it's hard to make that separation. But what happens if you do just simply have a difficult client?
No, well, I think you just have to be very professional, right? You keep the focus on the work. So I think, if you're not getting let's say somebody just gives you kind of loose feedback, right? It needs to be more like this, but it's that whatever they said to like this isn't specific. I think you need to ask them, can you share with me an example of what it is you would like, or can you specifically, tell me what about this that we can adjust? I think you have to be a good interviewer, right? So you can't just go, okay, no problem, I got it, right? And because what's going to happen is you're going to make another guess at what they want, and chances are it may not be what they want, and then you start to lose your credibility with that client, right? Because they think that you're not listening. And so the only way that you can convince them you're listening is to ask them more questions. So because at the end of the day, you want to make them happy, and you want to get it done, and you want to move on to the next thing that needs to be done. So so I think I don't let that stuff bother me, because you can't. There's no reason to get mad about it. There's no reason to get frustrated. There are moments, right, where you're like, oh, come on, right? But it's not that could happen anywhere. But you just handle it professionally and be nice, be courteous. Don't write short sentences. If it's email, spell it out. Always try to make I think that that's a skill that you'll learn as you're communicating. When we do a lot of communication via email, is you got to learn how to communicate so it doesn't come off negative or dismissive or short. At the same time, you can't write people novels. So, but it's always, a kind salutation. Hey, blah, blah, blah. So great. I'm so great. Some of those notes, whatever. And then, did have a couple follow-up questions, da, 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 da. Can't wait to hear from you. This is gonna be a lot of fun. And then you fire it off, right? So the tone is always positive. And people are going to be way more receptive to that than if you're like, I don't understand what you're saying. Please explain more or better. They're going to be like, oh, wow, okay. So you can really put somebody off by your tone. So
yeah, instead of asking like, please explain better, you can be like, do you have a particular inspiration or particular sources that you would like us to view in order to get a better idea of how you're feeling about this project?
Absolutely.
Another follow-up for that, and then I'll get someone in the chat did put that the best design was Goofy, that the best story is The Lion King, which is Hamlet with lions.
A beautiful movie, yes.
Wonderful. And nostalgia, Dumbo. Oh, that's kind of a messed up beginning for a movie.
It's a rough one.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's oh shoot, what's his name? There was a Disney. He's one of the. For a moment, he would have been part of the Nine Old Men. His name is Bill. Shoot. I'll have to, but he's a really a great animator that did Dumbo, and he had usually done like kind of like the darker, moody characters, and then Bill Tyler. He wanted to stretch himself, and so he wanted to do Dumbo, and it's one of the most endearing characters it's ever done. So he killed it. I mean, like, he did a great job as well. So.
Okay, another follow-up for our more business related. Have you ever had to decline on projects just due to like an overflow of work, or just because it wasn't something you necessarily were interested in? Like, have you ever had to decline or drop projects?
Well, I haven't personally. And I've worked at places where maybe a project wasn't really in line with what they are good at, or maybe not what they really wanted to do. So, because there's, in themed entertainment, there's a lot of variety. There's flying theater shows, there's arena theater shows, there's all kinds of stuff, flat rides, there's roller coasters, you name it. So, and all that stuff needs to be designed and themed. And so not every place is going to be like, yes, we'll do that. Some places are a little more niche, and they just want to do, something really great, the way they like to do it. So yes, I've been in places where they've said no. Now as a freelance designer, if somebody wants me to do a flying theater, heck yeah, I'll do it. If they want to do a theater show, sure, why not? Sounds like fun, right? I've never done one, but I'm sure it's cool. Or somebody just wants me to design something cool with their flat ride, right? So the flat rides are like a tilt-a-whirl or some kind of teacups or whatever. If I can theme that out, sure, why not? I'd do it. But so the only way I turn down work right now is if I just didn't have enough bandwidth to do it, or I couldn't partner with another designer that I could work with to handle it.
Gotcha. Alrighty. We can do another like fun one, or we could do a more CGT based question. What kind of question do you want, Bill?
You can ask me the name of my dog.
Yes. Is the dog in the room?
Yeah.
Show us the
Here, buddy.
best.
All right, so here is this little dude.
Hi, baby. Hello. How are you?
Say hi.
And what's their name?
This is Indiana.
Hi, Indiana. Oh, just gonna leave.
Right? He's like, I'm out.
I have gotten the attention, and I am good. Goodbye.
Right? So I was just checking in. But yeah, no, so his name's Indiana.
All right, we do have another question in the chat. Who do you look for when pitching projects?
Who would I look for?
Yeah, so like if you had a concept idea or a project, do you find companies to develop it, or do you usually wait for a company to come to you with an idea?
Okay, so, well, when I'm, now I'm independent, so I'm not going to really develop anything myself. So somebody's I'm gonna go seek out opportunities to do work for someone. But when I was at Sally, we did develop ride concepts. So, and some of those could be a brand or an idea that we came up with that was not attached to a particular property. And then other times we would. So like we did a Five Nights and Freddy's concept. And so that was, didn't really do much on that one myself. It was more illustration stuff, but there was a narrative and illustrations. And then we had another one, which was The Walking Dead. And so that one, again, it was mostly illustrations and narrative. And so those usually are just like what they call a pitching document, right? And so those are things you can take to trade shows. Those are things you can send a PDF to prospective companies. You give them like a book. Here's 5 ideas, right, for a potential ride that we could do for you. And so we'd have a mixture of stuff that was IP or intellectual property, grounded, and then we'd have stuff that wasn't. It's less expensive for the client to buy something that doesn't have an IP attached to it, but it also requires more marketing. Something that has an IP already has a fan base, already has people already know what it is, so you don't have to educate them, right? So.
All right, our chat is pretty still, so I will come up with some more questions while we still have time.
Sure.
What is one thing you would recommend, since we are in a time of working from home and working remotely, what would you recommend for creating that home office or keeping yourself motivated while working at home?
For me, it's about keeping most of my routine. So, I try to keep the same routine that I had before all this stuff happened, where I get up at the same time, I go get in the shower, go do some exercise, take the dog for a nice walk, make myself breakfast, make coffee and all that, right? So I try to do the things I would do if I was going to the office. And then I leave, I leave the TV off. Maybe I'll watch the news for 15 minutes just to see what's going on. But then otherwise, unless it's playing music, I just leave it off, right? And so I'm basically like, I put on I'm at work hat, and I'm gonna sit here and work, and then it's up to me to decide when I've had enough. And it's never at 5 o'clock. I mean, maybe at 5 o'clock I go take the dog for a walk because he's used to that routine. So I take him for a walk, bring him home, I feed him, and then, I may or may not make myself dinner at that point. And then I'm going to try to figure out what I wanted to wrap up that day.
Yeah, so just staying very on top of things, keeping a schedule, making sure you're organized and you know what you want to get done for the day. I think that especially applies for us college kids right now. Get into a routine, get into a schedule. You might not be able to do it every day, but it'll definitely help. We have about 10 minutes left, so again, Random questions are totally welcome and totally adored. I love random questions, so definitely feel free to put more into the chat. Otherwise, we will be getting off of here soon. Again, Bill, thank you so much for your time, and just thanks for coming out and talking to us. I know it's a little different than years prior with us being in a weird Zoom call that neither of us know exactly how to set up.
Right, yeah, with getting the inputs right for the Zoom into this thing. Seemed a little trickier than it should be.
Yeah. That's what I need in my life, a step-by-step guide on how to do it.
It helps, for sure.
What advice would you give to students who are looking more into the ride industry and dark rides as a profession? What advice would you give to them?
I would highly recommend, if you guys do not have a TEA Next Gen chapter at your school, you should set one up and get involved. TEA is a Themed Entertainment Association, and it's an international association. They're great, and they have a really awesome program for college and post-college graduates. So when you get discount tickets to things like SATE, which is a yearly conference, and and then also IAPA, so the International Association of Amusement Parks and Amusements, and I know it, I just can't think of it right now. But anyway, but it's a large association. You can also be a student member on IAPA, and it's a very nominal fee, and it gives you a lot of access and gives you discount tickets. So right now, for example, is the THEA Award Showcase, which is the Themed Entertainment Association Awards. So imagine the Oscars, but it's for themed entertainment. That happens every year, and different projects are selected, and there's many different categories. And so the showcase is awesome because you can see and hear the people that have developed these talk about them. So I've been watching them for the last, 3 weeks. So there's been one every, it's either 2 or 3 weeks there's one. So they've broken it up because they're 2-hour sessions. Part of the great thing about doing it is there's also a networking part before it starts for 45 minutes. Then after it, there's a post-networking, and they also had a next-gen networking. So the TEA Association had some of the next-gen folks could get together and talk and meet people from all over the industry. It's a really great way to connect with the people that are involved from every country and every company. And so I would recommend both of those, and do it now. They're both very inexpensive for a student. If you have to borrow, a little bit of money from your folks, do it, because it's going to further your opportunities for sure.
Alrighty, so we have 5 minutes. Are there any just words of encouragement that you would give college kids in general?
So my words of encouragement would be to try to think about how to improve on what's been done. So don't copy what's been done, because we've all seen what's been done, and nobody, a client wants to see something new and fresh. So think about how you could do something differently, or maybe add in more experience, right? And by that I mean guest experience. So if you're designing a ride, this is specifically about themed entertainment, but if you're designing a ride or attraction, what would you want to see, right? If you went and rode some ride at some park and you're like, this would be great if it only had this, right? Or I really love this part, but that other part I really hated. Well, how would you do it, right? How would you make it better? So always think about how to do things differently than what's been done. Your foundation is what's been done. So you build upon that. That'd be my suggestion.
Alrighty. Here's another just random question from me, because I like those. Do you prefer daytime or nighttime?
Oh, goodness. Probably, I don't know, maybe daytime?
Daytime?
Just because you can do more.
The next question, would you be more of a morning person?
Well, it depends. I mean, I've gotten to that stage in life that unfortunately, even though I want to sleep in, I can't. So, I'm reluctantly a morning person. It doesn't mean I'm not tired. Like my brain starts going at, 6:40 in the morning, and it doesn't matter if I lay there for another hour, I'm not doing anything. So I'm not sleeping, that's for sure. But I have a hard time going to bed, unless I'm watching a movie, then it seems quite simple.
I feel that. Some movies, the soundtrack is very peaceful, and the movie might be a little slow in the beginning, so everything's very peaceful, and then you just kind of like, I'm gonna go to sleep now.
Yeah, it's usually not planned. It's 2 a.m. I'm like, my neck hurt. Why are we 3 more episodes into this?
I don't remember what happened at all. Great, now I have to rewatch that.
You got it. Yep, that happens a lot.
Speaking of episodes, what would you say is it can be Hulu or Netflix, what's on your watch list? What have you enjoyed watching in like the film world?
Oh, goodness, there's lots of stuff. So I just finished watching, I got caught up this weekend on The Boys on Amazon, which is kind of like the dystopian superhero story, where they're just complete deviants. So that's pretty fun. And then I really liked Umbrella Club, Umbrella Academy. That was really good. That was fun. I thought the second season was stellar. And then let's see. Trying to think what else I've watched lately.
I'm noticing a trend with this dystopian style superhero.
Yeah, it's fun, right?
It is. It's very interesting.
Well, we all know the stereotypical superhero story, right? And it's, unfortunately, they've been kind of overtold, some of them.
Yeah, the archetype of heroes where it's all like gun-ho and they can do it all and nothing stands in their way. The Hercules of the world.
Right. Yeah, you're like, okay, another one of those, right?
Yeah.
So they get a little dry. I really loved because I'm a theme park nerd, and I'm just obsessed with all this stuff. So there's on the Disney Plus channel, there's a really great Imagineering story, and that's incredible. So it's really neat. So if you're into theme parks and all that, it's definitely a must watch. There's also some cool like behind the scenes stuff, like there's like a sort of like the day at Disney or something like that, where they will follow around a person and the person tells you all about what they do.
Oh wow, that's
so
cool.
That's pretty neat.
I did watch the process of decorating Disney for Halloween and how
there you go.
little.
So that'd be neat. Yeah, they go all out. It's really cool. There's another. I kind of like documentary stuff if it's something I'm interested in. But they've got one on the making of the Mandalorian, which is pretty epic.
Ooh.
And and that show is incredible. I can't wait for the next season, which is coming out soon, I think.
I could have done without ever seeing his face.
Oh yeah.
That was one thing I never wanted to see. I'm blocking that part. I'm just like, no. I never wanted to see his face. Right. But that might just be me. Some people might have been like, haha, the mystery revealed. I'm over here like, no, I don't want to see it.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like there's a bit of a disconnect between the voice and seeing him, right? Like,
Yes, there's a very, very weird sort of like differentiation, I guess.
right. Well, and then I know him from he was in the Game of Thrones, right? And so in the Game of Thrones, he had it seemed to me anyway, from my recollection, that he had an accent, like a specific one, and not that of what he's doing as a Mandalorian. So it's weird to hear this voice and then see his face, and I just have a hard time bridging the two because I know that other voice from the other show, so it messes me up.
All right, everyone, it is 8 o'clock. Again, thank you so much for coming. I really enjoyed just talking with you and answering all these questions. I hope those who get to watch this find some form of great information in between randomness. So I hope that little splash of random keeps your attention so you can learn all the great information. Again, this is Bill Kivi. He is absolutely wonderful. He has a website if you want to see some of the 3D models and some of the designs, so definitely throw that in Google, check that out. I know I did. And have a great night. Any last things to say to everybody before we end up the stream?
Well, I don't know. Follow your passion. Do what you like. Have fun doing it, and be nice to everyone else.
There we go. That's what we all need. Be a little bit nicer.
Yeah,
all right, everyone.
Absolutely.
Have a good night.
Thank you.